Stand up.
Hi there, welcome to today's episode of Stand Up, which is a conversation with myself and one of the people who was honored last week at Time Magazine's Time 100. Shannon Minter is my guest for the first time. Shannon is, well, he's a civil rights attorney, and he's also the legal director of the National Center for LGBTQ Rights in San Francisco. He's led impact litigation, legislation, and public policy efforts for over 30 years, and he's had a lot of wins. And so I really enjoyed our conversation. I was connected with him by our friend Allison Jaslow, who's amazing. So I hope you like this conversation with Shannon. It's kind of an update on LGBTQ rights. I think it's inspiring. Unfortunately, I've got a cold or something. I don't know if you can hear my voice, but I'm not feeling well. I'm coughing. I'm phlegmy. I just can't talk on this mic, and I don't feel well. I'm perfectly fine. In a day or two, I'll get outside and eat a salad. For those of you that listened to yesterday's show, and I'm sure I will feel better and be back tomorrow. And I look forward to seeing you at tomorrow night's hangout. Either way. All right, so let's do it right now with Shannon Minter. You should follow him and support him. Go over to gladlaw.org is their website, and I think you're going to love it. Okay, I am very excited to welcome to the show for the first time someone who has been receiving a lot of accolades and awards. And just last week, 2026 Time Magazine honored him, and we're very excited. The 100 most influential people of 2026. Shannon, you made it. You're enough.
Yeah, there you go.
Thank you very much for joining me. Really appreciate it. Shannon Minter is joining me now, and this is the first time we've talked, and I'm really excited to have this discussion with you today. So welcome.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here, Pete.
Tell me about your organization first, and then I'll talk a little bit more specifically about you and your work. But the GLBTQ Legal Advocates and Defenders.
No, that's not my organization.
I'm reading the wrong thing.
That's okay. Don't worry about it. They're actually our closest partner, so that's not totally off the wall. No, I work for
National
NCLR.
Center for LGBTQ Rights. I'm looking at an article where they're honoring you. I apologize. Tell me about the National Center for LGBTQ Rights.
Totally cool. I've been there for so long. I've been there for 30-some years, which is an indication of how highly I value it. This is a great organization. It really is. It was founded back in 1977. By women. It's the only national LGBT legal organization that was founded by women. Donna Hitchens, who went on to be just an incredibly important judge in California. She was the first openly lesbian person elected to the California bench. And then her partner was Roberta Achtenberg, who was the first openly lesbian or gay person confirmed by the U.S. Senate under the Clinton administration. Anyway, they're just like these really impressive women that founded this organization and brought this like feminist sensibility, just real creativity, flexibility, and you know how I think organizations get stamped with the personality of their founders a lot of times, and this one got stamped with some good stuff. It's just like it's been like so much fun to work there for so long because we are just so flexible. That's the main thing I would say, and we've been able to turn on a dime, meet the moment. I don't know. It's been fun. I started our immigration and asylum project. Way back when, like back in the mid 90s, when that was barely a thing. There was just the very moment that the law allowed LGBTQ people to apply for asylum, we just were able to start a program, and it's been going ever since. And I actually went to the organization to start the first legal program to help kids who've been put into conversion therapy. We started a sports project, elder project, with the Trump administration, both the last one and this one. We just immediately were able to respond and start filing federal lawsuits. So it's that kind of a place to work. So it's very exciting, very non-calcified, very non-bureaucratic, very much about pragmatism, just helping our community. We don't feel like one of the things our movement has kind of gone off the rails a little bit about is becoming too ideological and losing track of we just need to focus on the interest of actual living, breathing LGBTQ people and what they need to thrive, and get away from some of the grandiose grandiosity.
I want to talk more about the grandiosity and the ideological angles that you mean, but just overall, your organization, along with others, the one I think I mistakenly referred to you as working with these organizations do a lot of legal work to defend the rights of people in the community, if you will, the LGBTQ community. And you have argued in front of all types of courts for those rights. That's a lot of what you have been doing, and your organization does. Is that a fair way of characterizing it?
Yeah, sorry, I kind of skipped over the basic. Yeah, we're like a legal organization, and that is exactly what we do. We litigate and propose legislation and policy. But yeah, primarily it's a litigation group.
Let me just work my way backwards, because what I really want to do is kind of get an update on where the general nexus of LGBTQ rights are right now. It's hard to keep track of rights one, except for we really celebrate when it happens, and most people know that certain things, thresholds are met, marriage equality and so on. But it's harder and more painful, obviously, to keep track of rights lost. And I feel like we really need to talk about where we're at so people aren't too confused about it, specifically me. It feels like that this administration, since Trump returned, has been particularly targeting trans Americans, trans adolescent kids, and so on, and taking away those rights as opposed to lesbian and gay men and women. Obviously, I know about the monument at Stonewall and so on. In terms of actual rights, it's what stands out are serving in the military, serving in the administration, or in the federal government in general. Where are we at kind of working our way backwards with this administration? How many rights have they tried to take? Have they successfully taken?
Yeah, they have so far primarily focused on transgender people, although I do think it's on their agenda too to get around to undermining protections for gay people. I think they're kind of increasingly out there about that. But yeah, they've been very unabashed that their stated goal is to dismantle any and all legal protections or even social recognition of transgender people. They're really overt about that. We just haven't seen that before. In prior, even when issues have come up around banning transgender people from the military, the first time around the Trump administration came up with pretexts for that. They try to rationalize it, justify it. This time they've just been very out there. They're like, we think transgender people are not real. We don't think this is a real identity. We think they're immoral. That saying you're transgender is a type of immorality, dishonesty. That somebody who says they're transgender because they don't believe that's a real thing is morally unfit to serve in the military. And that's just not something we've seen before. So yeah, they're dismantling everything: employment protections, education protections. They're literally trying to make it impossible, first for transgender youth, but increasingly for transgender adults, to receive any kind of medical care. They have adopted a policy for transgender people who are incarcerated in federal prisons that rather than receiving medical care, they will be given forced psychiatric medications and conversion therapy.
That sounds like torture.
Yeah, it is torture. That would literally be torture. There is at the moment a federal court order blocking them from enforcing that policy, but the minute if they can get out from under that order on appeal or with the Supreme Court, they will start subjecting incarcerated transgender people to forced conversion therapy. Yeah, this is about as serious as it gets in terms of their level of hostility towards transgender people and the extremity of the policies they're willing to adopt and enforce. It's pretty bad.
Not for you to speak for the trans community, but give me a non-legal kind of conclusion about how the community feels with all of these threats, because you have to start hiding and lying and not being yourself. And I just wanted to ask you just what you hear from your clients, your own thoughts about how the trans community in America feels under this horrible, horrible situation that we find ourselves in, they find themselves in.
Yeah. Furious and scared, equal parts furious and scared. I mean, I'm old enough, and when I came out as transgender, back in the early 90s, it was before a lot of the legal protections that we have now. And I see a lot of stuff coming full circle. I mean, back in that time, there was a lot of self-help, enormous amount of people like just helping each other in order to get health care. It wasn't illegal, but you had to pay out of pocket and relied on word of mouth. And there were very few providers, and people would really have to share information at a grassroots level and help each other. There was a lot of people, having to be stealth, try to not have anybody know that you're transgender in order to get a job and keep a job. Yeah, we're kind of that mentality is kind of coming back to the community. So, people are very resourceful. It's a very resourceful group of people who've had to deal historically with a lot of oppression and discrimination. So, we will survive this, and we will prevail, and we will stick together and help each other. But there's a tremendous amount of fear at the same time.
You have seen a lot in your life and career. I can't imagine what it's been like, but you've also won a lot in your life and career. And so I can sense where you're getting that kind of optimism and positivity from, because you've actually been in the fight for most of your life and you've seen a lot of wins. So I appreciate that as a kind of a way of looking at it. Just recently, the Supreme Court decided that they are going to allow a challenge to Colorado's conversion therapy ban. Is it Colorado, the planet here?
Oh, gosh, yeah, Pete, that happened. They did allow it, and they've already issued their decision.
Right.
And they did strike – well, they did not strike it down. They held it as likely unconstitutional. They sent it back to the trial court. I will say, though, that decision could have been like way, way, way worse.
Okay. Okay.
I do want people to know that. Like, there was a lot of interesting strategy that went on clearly amongst those Supreme Court justices, and the two of the liberal ones, Kagan and Sotomayor, clearly struck a deal with the more conservative ones to make sure that the decision was very narrow. So it's not great to lose, but they did not endorse conversion therapy. They didn't deny it's harmful. They didn't say it was ethical. They didn't say it was appropriate. And they also focused so narrowly on certain aspects of the way that law was structured that I think it's going to be pretty easy for Colorado and other states to go back and just reenact those protections. They just have to do it in a more careful way.
Okay, well, I'm relieved to hear that. And, I talk to my friend, con law scholar Eric Siegel, all the time about the Supreme Court and its interpretations, but it's really, better to talk to you specifically about these cases that affect the community to see how it kind of plays out and what the reaction is. And more importantly, I think we can learn what the legal strategy, what you guys are planning on doing. But just to be clear, conversion therapy is also torture. And I'm sure probably most people know what it is, but it's this really harmful practice to attempt to change someone's sexual orientation or gender identity. Give us a status, or give us a little bit of a brief summary of where that's been at, where it came from and where it is, because it's a horrible, horrible thing, and no one in the scientific community seems to support or back it. I don't think anything around that has changed. Is that accurate?
That is right. Every single mental health organization in the country recognizes that conversion therapy is harmful. That it just hurts people, and it does not provide anybody with any type of positive benefit whatsoever. I mean, it goes back to the view from like the 50s that being gay or transgender was pathological disorder and undesirable. Just it's not something that we would want anyone to be, and that if we could try to make people not be gay or not be transgender, that would be a good thing. So everything under the sun was tried, everything you can think of, aversion therapy, medication, and then just sort of wacky psychoanalytic theories, all of them pretty much about that you had bad parenting, that what causes someone to be gay or transgender is you have bad parenting that gives you like a dysfunctional relationship to your masculinity or femininity. So it's all just about shoring up gender stereotypes and trying to get boys and men to be more masculine and girls and women to be more feminine. It's really very crackpot stuff. And it did kind of die down. There was research that showed that gay people in particular were just as psychologically healthy as anyone else, that just being gay doesn't make you mentally ill or anything like that. And then we now have more research to the same effect about transgender people. But there's a market for it, and it actually started sort of coming back and resurging. Yeah, because kids are coming out at younger ages. You think about it, like people used to not come out till they were in their 20s.
I'm sorry, just a market for conversion therapy because kids are coming out even younger. There is this quote, you say market need or concern that some parents have to quote fix their child and make them more masculine, more feminine. That's what you mean by
not be gay, to not be transgender. Yeah. I mean, the fact when kids start coming out at younger ages, and then they're going to be living with their parents for as openly gay or transgender for a much longer period of time. Yeah, it created a way for some of these therapists to financially exploit these very vulnerable families. And we're real careful. I do not blame these parents at all. I mean, these are parents who love their children, and they're genuinely terrified for them. They think, oh my gosh, this is my kid's going to have a really hard life. If there's something I can do to steer my child in a different direction, I should do that as a responsible, loving parent. I mean, that's really what they believe, and these therapists come along and exploit that. And people will pay tens of thousands of dollars over years. It's very lucrative. So it's such a problem. Right, I mean, the APA recognized this. They did a big report, maybe it's been about 10 plus years ago now, where they're like, we do think there's a resurgence of this. Targeting youth.
APA, Pediatric Association, American.
No, I'm sorry, the American Psychological Association. So they've really stepped up, and they've been very responsible. They've done massive study and reports and tried to warn families about this. I still think, making such good progress. And about half the states had laws saying, hey, you cannot do this to minors. You can't do it. That's the one Colorado's got, challenged and went up to the Supreme Court. And it was a loss. Again, it was a loss. The court said that statute was likely unconstitutional because they said it infringed on free speech, but they provided a pretty clear roadmap for how states could do it properly, do it in a way that doesn't concern the court. So I just want people to know that we have not hit the end of the road with protecting young people from this practice not at all.
I can tell by reading your bio and about your organization and other organizations out there. I used to talk to Evan Wolfson for years. I talked to Evan Wolfson about marriage equality. And so I know your ilk, and that was what gives me, I think, optimism for the future. Because I know, it's very easy and always has been easy to paint LGBTQ people as somehow weaker, less than, not as strong or as fierce, and all these other adjectives that describe strength. But I bring you Shannon Minter and his career and the organization and their wins. And so it's the proof is in your actual success. Just conversion therapy real quick, in terms of the market, in terms of those who offer it, isn't it overwhelmingly some kind of religious nonsense that gets put on, and isn't overwhelmingly kids who get forced into it? It's like, do adults sign up voluntarily for conversion therapy as well? Is there services for them too?
Some adults still do. And it is typically adults who are coming or out of a very conservative religious background and who genuinely are grappling with a very real conflict between their religious upbringing and faith and, their identity and who they are. So the adults still are vulnerable, but yes, it is mostly at this point young people who, of course, can't legally consent anyway. Like when you're a minor, it's your parents who have the legal right to consent to mental health treatment or medical treatment with some exceptions. And young people are so vulnerable. I mean, young people they love their parents usually, and they want to please them, and they tend to believe therapists have a lot of credibility, and a lot of these therapists, they'll come on very warm and understanding. And these are young people who often are like grappling with coming out, and they do need somebody to talk to. And part of the just unique and just it's so insidious, the harm that's caused is that young people do kind of often will bond with the therapist and develop a real attachment. And then to have that person be the one telling them there's something wrong with the way you feel, that the reason you feel this way is you're too close to your mother, or there's something you're not confident in your masculinity. It's so devastating. I cannot even tell you how harmful it is. There's actually research that shows nearly 2/3 of young people who are put into conversion therapy by their families attempt suicide, not just feel suicidal at times or something like that. Attempt suicide. It's really the harms here are not, they are lasting and go right to the core of who a person is.
Same main concern, worst case scenario with trans youth, depression that leads to suicide, which is why it was so outrageous in my community, in my Board of Education fight, to hear people screaming about the dangers that trans girls pose specifically in the bathroom. And what I said at those board meetings was, I'm not worried about trans girls assaulting my cisgender high school daughters in the bathroom or locker room. I'm worried for them. Far more likely to be victims of abuse, far more likely to hurt themselves, which is why I was so angry that they were targeting them. And when I think about it right now, I get so fucking pissed, Shannon, because they were targeting the most vulnerable, arguably, community in the school in terms of where they're at mentally, and making them aggressors as opposed to victims. And I remember I tried to make fun of them all the time. I was like, last year it was black kids are attacking white kids. This year it's trans kids are attacking the straight kids. Next year it's going to be that the physically disabled kid in the wheelchair is attacking the jocks. Like, they're making vulnerable people the aggressor and making the people who is actually often the aggressor the victim, and they win. They won on that in my town. They scared the shit out of people, made it all up, and they won those 2 seats. I think there's now a backlash to that. We got 2 new great board members that we're running. There's an election in May. I'm in the fight. I'm excited. But talk about that. I give you my personal anecdote as how it played out in my school district in Rockland County, just north of New York City. But that happened all over the country for a few years, right?
Oh gosh, yeah, it's still happening. It's still happening. States are passing some of the most draconian, cruel, over the top bathroom laws you can imagine. But thank you for speaking up for that. Yeah, I mean, back in the day, we used to do this to gay kids. People used to just if a kid came out as gay, or somebody thought a kid was gay, they would just no longer see that young person as a child in need of protection. They would view them as like an adult through a sexualized lens, and suddenly see this like little kid, like maybe 12, 13, 14 years old, as like some sort of dangerous sexual predator. I think we have moved past that with lesbian gay kids, but we are right smack in the middle of that phenomenon with transgender kids. We have lost track of the reality. These are children. They are young people. They should not be seen as some kind of predatory, the same way as like some sort of predatory adult. I think about, there was a case in Northern California, Gwen Araujo. She was 15 years old, was brutally murdered by 3 boys from her class after they discovered that she was transgender. And I sat through the entire criminal trial of those young men. And throughout that trial, you would have thought Gwen was like, 40 years old or something. It's just the fact that this was a teenage girl who was brutally assaulted, just was completely lost in that entire prosecution. But yes, we've got to just wake up and realize we're talking about very vulnerable young people here. The idea that these kids pose a threat to anyone is ludicrous, but it's also just really morally offensive.
Well, yeah, both of those, and I could name some more emotions and consequences. Another kind of little-known argument, but I think super important. I want to get your take on this. This is another one that they made, and there are laws about this. let me try to muddle through it. But if a child comes to the conclusion or decides they identify as gay or lesbian or trans, and they are very worried about coming out at home to their parents because they're worried about the potential consequences. And unfortunately, we have a million stories of horrible consequences of parents abusing their kids, alienating, throwing them out of the house. And so the kid decides to come out to a teacher or some other adult in a school. And they say, I'm identify as trans, but if my parents find out, they'll hurt me. They'll throw me out. There's a law that protects that child's privacy and that protects the teacher that says you do not have to report this to a parent. The parents came in our school board meetings and they screamed, how dare you? How dare you not tell me? You're taking my, quote, parental rights. You have to tell me what my child tells you. And that was a very convincing thing, unfortunately, including to, I think, a lot of probably liberal-minded people in my town and others. You know about this, I'm sure. Talk to me about what you've seen across the country, how much this gets brought up. They always talk about parental rights. And more specifically and most importantly, what happens to that kid and the teacher?
Yeah, this issue pains me greatly. I feel like this is an issue where there's been so much misunderstanding and miscommunication,
yes,
and that
it's hard to communicate
past each other. Yeah. And our side has not always been the best at talking about this in a way that people can understand.
No, I've often I've often had the best intentions and delivered it in a way that doesn't help anybody. I have done it. I think I'm doing the right thing, and I go up there and I or on Facebook and I just lose it. I'm like, fuck you people. And guess what? That actually doesn't work. Surprisingly, It feels good emotionally, but it actually puts us a step back where I think we need to be. So go ahead. Sorry.
Well, we need to normalize this. The same way of course, everyone wants kids to talk to their parents. And we also want kids to feel safe talking to a teacher or another trusted adult. We want to encourage that. The pieces that get left out is that this isn't the type of situation where, schools or teachers are like deliberately encouraging young people to not talk to their parents or to hide who they are from their parents or to go around their parents' back or to undermine the kid's relationship with the parents. No, I mean, teachers are just doing here what they do with all kinds of other issues. Like if a child comes to a teacher about something else, like they think they may be pregnant or they're having some kind of very sensitive problem. Like if the kid knows that the minute they talk to a teacher, the teacher has to immediately pick up the phone and call the parents, they're not going to talk to that teacher. The end result of that is not going to be that the kid talks to the parents. It's going to be the kid doesn't talk to anybody and is isolated and getting no help or support at all. I mean, we just got to stop treating this as like a unique situation in some way. Of course, kids have all kinds of issues. I mean, when I came out when I was in high school, I was very mixed up. I wasn't sure what I was coming out as. I knew I was attracted to girls at that time. I was born female, and I knew I was a member of the LGBT community, and my parents had a terrible time with that. They were very rejecting. And the only person who would talk to me was my high school government teacher, who was a very conservative, even fundamentalist Christian. And he was very clear with me. He's like, look, I want you to know, I think being gay is sinful and wrong, but it's no more sinful or wrong than many things I do. I care about you. I get choked up to this day talking about this. That man kept me alive just by being kind and non-judgmental and checking in with me every day. And if there was some policy that he had to call my parents and tell them what I was saying to him or what, I would never have talked to him. And I don't think I would have survived. I really don't. Not to be melodramatic or anything, but he was a lifeline for me. And the damage that we're doing to kids by passing these, I get the intention behind them. The intention is parents want to be involved. They don't want to be cut out of their children's life. I get that. But I just wish they could understand that's really not what's going on here. That's not the goal. It's not what anybody wants. We just want kids to get support. And 9 times out of 10, what will happen, we do know this, there's research, is that when kids are able to talk to a teacher or a school counselor, that person will help them figure out how to go back to their parents and talk to their parents. But you would never know that from the way these debates are structured.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that and for being vulnerable and talking about that. That sounds just so horrific. And also amazing that that guy was able to be that for you at that time, especially. I just remember what I said at the board meeting, Shannon, that I don't think was effective was I said, if your child is afraid to talk to you about anything, you're a bad parent. And I felt good, but it didn't help. People don't like being shamed by another parent. It's not effective, but I said it. Let me just, I guess, close by, and I would love to talk to you again. There's so many other questions. What have you learned? You touched on, kind of what you might have learned or what corrections the movement you might make and legally strategy you might make over the past few years. What have you done wrong? What have we done wrong? What direction do you think we should be headed to defend the rights we've won and regain rights that we're losing?
Well, it's funny you mentioned Evan Wilson. I've worked so closely with him over the years and learned so much from him in the context of marriage equality. It was something I was very, very involved in. And, I feel like the transgender movement, to a certain extent, has lost sight of some of the lessons that we learned from that movement that were so powerful, which is just like stressing our common humanity with other people, stressing what we have in common with other people, sort of meeting people where they are, being, reassuring and just explaining to people because they don't know it that, gay people, or in this case, transgender people, want the same things other people want. We just want to be able to be safe and go to work and have ID that reflects who you are and just, have some dignity in your daily life, that kind of thing. People really respond to that and understand that. They really, in my experience, they really, really do. But what they don't respond well to is the kind of thing, you're sort of alluding to as being lectured or told that they're bigoted.
Say it this way. What they don't say it this way, Shannon. What they don't respond to, Pete, is being a dick like you've been.
No. But, we get very abstract and ideological and start talking about, that we need to undo the gender binary or, get people to just change the way in a real fundamental way, like change the way they think about who they are and about what does it mean? What does sex mean? Or what does it mean to be a man or a woman? Like, these are important philosophical questions, but it's not a good way to persuade people to support just basic social acceptance and legal protection for transgender people. It's too highfalutin. It's too, you're asking people to question the most basic tenets of their lives and the way they've thought about things for a long time. And they don't need to do that. Those are important questions. I don't want to minimize that, but nobody needs to engage with any of that, or much less all of that, in order to just support the basic proposition that, people who are transgender should be treated with just some basic dignity and respect and have like some basic workplace protections, be able to get ID that matches who you are so you can travel and live and just be a productive member of society. And I do think, we should try to get back to more of that.
It's harder to normalize trans people because there aren't as many and they're not as mainstreamed into kind of culture. You think of certain television shows like Ellen or Will and Grace or other cultural breakthroughs when it came to the LGBT community. But it's different. A lot different, and so is being trans, sexual orientation, gender identity. People get confused about all of this, but it's just not as common and it's not as prevalent, right? So that makes it harder to quote normalize. Does that make sense? Is that a fair assumption?
Absolutely. No, oh my gosh, yes, it's a much smaller group, and then also, most transgender people are private about being transgender. So you might know a transgender person and you're never going to know a transgender person. And that is a real challenge in itself. In that way, it's very different than gay and lesbian people, because gay and lesbian people, when they have a partner and family, it's going to be visible, but most transgender people are just kind of quietly living their lives. And unless they're going to tell somebody, no one's going to know. And that is it's hard to leverage that into widespread public acceptance, because it's not visible.
Exactly. You've shared a lot about your personal life here, but I just want to ask you one final question, which is last week you were at the Time 100. You were one of the 100 most influential people in 2026. And Ricardo Martinez, the executive director of the LGBTQ Legal Advocates and Defenders, writes this about you, and I want to get your response here. I'll embarrass you. He writes, when you hear Shannon before the court, what strikes you is his conviction. His steadiness comes from operating squarely within the truth that the Constitution's promise is real. The American dream belongs to all of us, and law, wielded with courage and precision, can be an instrument of genuine justice. With over 30 years of major victories, Shannon Minter carries none of his successes with ego. He has a soft core, a brilliant mind, and a love for all beings that radiates even in a courtroom. He reminds us why this work matters and what it looks like to serve something greater than yourself. What does it feel to be recognized like by an organization and by your peers that way? And I have one more question, just that one first.
It feels amazing. I mean, it's wonderful. I'm just so grateful. I just think the fact that a magazine like Time is so mainstream, such long, very central institution in our society, and honestly, generally kind of a conservative one, that they would recognize the importance of what's happening to transgender people in this moment, that means a lot. And I am extremely grateful for that.
So then spiritually, it sounds like you have kind of a practice, if you will, or a discipline or a belief that everyone is a human. And the people who are demonizing you and other LGBTQ people and saying the worst things about you and threatening you, you recognize them as humans, and you don't see them necessarily as bad people, as evil people. And that's what I'm getting from the way you're talking about folks who you vehemently disagree with and who, again, would in some cases want to see people like you dead. What is your discipline? What is your practice? How do you view those people that say those things about you?
Oh, yeah, I do believe that. I do deeply believe in everyone's humanity. And I think most people do care about other people and want to do the right thing. And people get off base when they give in to fear. And there's so much, just so many efforts now to make people fear transgender people. I understand why that could be effective with some people, but yeah, I mean, I do have a strong spiritual faith. I am deeply Christian, and I do believe in those teachings that we have to love everyone, love your enemies, and that we're all fallible and fallen. And I am not in any position to judge anyone. I am not. I have made terrible mistakes in my own life, and I know I've hurt people in my own life, and I think it's better to just start from a place of recognizing that we all do share a common humanity for all the good things and also all the fallibilities.
Wow. I really appreciate you joining me today, your honesty, your courage, and all of your work. And I hope that we can talk again. I love that Allison Jaslow put us together because she's one of my favorite people, and it feels real good to connect with you, and I hope we can do this again. Thank you for all of you've done, and just, I guess, plugging. What are we plugging here outside of your organization, National Center for LGBTQ Rights? That's it. Yep, NCLRrights.org, and we could always use support, that's for sure. Got it. Thank you, Shannon. Really appreciate it. Thanks. Thank you is what I was trying to say. All right. My daughter called right at the end of that interview. I hope you liked it. Hope you got a lot out of it. And again, sorry I don't have a full show, news and clips for you today, but you don't want to hear this. You don't want to hear what's going on inside here. It's just gross, my voice and phlegm and stuff. So, all right, let's wrap it up and say goodbye. I hope you have a great day. Thank you very much for joining me today. I hope to see you in the Discord platform or connecting with each other. And I'll see you at tomorrow night's Hangout. Get a paid subscription. Write a rating and review on Spotify and, most importantly, Apple, where most of you listen. And that is it. Talk to you later. John Carroll, take us out, please. Trees, you got to stand up.
delicate knees, you gotta stand up. Stand up. I think you're driving wheels with leaking grease. Boy, you better stand up. Stand up. Well, there's a whole lot more of us who know what's right. They'll keep right on ignoring us if we keep sitting tight. You got to open up the window to let in some light. You gotta stand up. That's right. We got to rise up. You got to stand up. You got to stare the devil straight in the eye. We got to let him know it's his turn to go. See it clear when all you hear is a lie. Don't get up off of your butt, get down off of your fence. And even if it ain't a very friendly audience, well, they'll begin to listen when you start making sense. And you stand up. Stand up. No need to point your rifle to defend your town. Just stand up. Stand up. You know they can't deny you what you're laying down. Oh, you better stand up. Stand up. Show your face of every color, yellow, black, red, and brown. This is the place where every lost child will finally be found. There's only one thing to do before we stand our ground, and that's stand up. Stand up. Well, the founding fathers saw a land for all. They had to stand up. They had to stand up. They had a keen imagination for a crystal ball, drawing all the plans of stand up. But all they had to go on was the time they were in, with other causes for laws, and since they weren't even sin, they knew that change was gonna come before the change could begin. They had to stand up. All right, they had to stand up. We got to stand up. We got to look the devil square in the eye. We got to let him know it's his time to go, and make it clear when all we hear is a lie. Why you lying awake wondering where the money all went? It'll be the cost of freedom that'll go unspent. You can see him flee the scene of that experiment if you stand up. All right. We got to speak up, we got to reach up, and raise your voice in every way you know how. Don't be toes up, you got to show up. Ain't no better time to do it but now. No need to pledge allegiance to no wanton tribe. Rise up, show obedience to the voice inside, and listen well and it'll tell you not to run and hide. It says stand up.